Hello everyone. I'm going to start with step-by-step videos to teach those beginners how to start. I mean, all the equipment you're going to need, how to use a water bath canner, how to use the pressure canner. I want everybody to be comfortable with using, especially the pressure canner. I'm going to show you some of the safeties that are on some of the new canners so that, you know, I've heard a lot of stories about how, you know, Granny's pressure canner blew up and Mama's pressure canner blew up and things like that. But the new pressure canners have got safeties on them to prevent that. I want to show you all different types of equipment and show you how to use that equipment and, you know, all the different sizes of jars, different types of jars. Now I'm going to start right here. First of all, you can see, let me move some of these things over. You can see I've got a big jar of pickles right there. And you see I've got a plastic ring around it. Now, I don't have to store it like that, but pickles and vinegar tend to cause rust. And so sometimes I will put those plastic rings on them and keep them in the refrigerator like that. And that way I don't risk my good rings getting rusted. And so I put these plastic ones on, and I found those on eBay. I actually bought some many years ago and found some about a year ago on eBay again. So there's a half gallon. Here is a wide mouth quart. Here is a regular mouth quart, and you can see the difference across the top. This one is quite a bit different, and this one, they have certain purposes. When you're canning something like, you know, like sometimes I'll use them for pickles and beets and different things that are heavy, you know, bulkier. And then you also have the wide mouth and the regular mouth in the pints. And now I didn't have an empty in the half pint, but you can see it's actually a little taller than the pint. I've got some basil in that. I keep my spices, I buy them in larger quantities. And then here is a quarter pint, and you can see it's smaller than that. And then I also have some of these that are a pint and a half. Now this is, you can see, I believe you can see right there that it says Mason on it. And I guess this is probably one of the ones that I got honey in. Some of those you'll find with spaghetti sauce in them. And if you live in East Tennessee, you'll probably find them, some people find them with moonshine in them. And trust me, I have a lot of them that have had moonshine in them. They are good mason jars, and they're a perfect size for some things for my husband and me. And so I found some in a yard sale, and I bought them, and they're wonderful. So, but anyway, then after you've got all of your jars, the next thing you're going to need are canning lids. And I want to caution you about buying canning lids online through Amazon and some of those places. And, you know, some of them will even say that they are ball lids, but if they're coming from China, they are not ball lids. Ball lids come from the Newell company here in the United States. And you can see here, this is a box that you can buy the canning lids with the rings. And so you can buy them either way. Now, you'll also need plenty of rings, and as you can see here, I've got a couple of wide mouth ones there, and I pulled this one out because I want to show you. See on the inside of it, you can see quite a bit of rust, and you don't want to put that on your jars and put it in the pressure canner, because the fluid from your jars flows through and you could end up with rust. You know, you want to make sure that it's pretty clean going into your pressure canner. And then I've got different colors in the small or the regular mouth. And then you can see I've got some solid lids. Now these are the plastic ones that I use just on storage things. And this one is one that I have, whenever I buy my honey, it always has these lids on it. And I keep those because, excuse me, they can be vacuum sealed. So I always try to keep those. Now, you can see back here, this thing has seen a lot, better days a long time ago, but it still works. It's an old aluminum canning funnel. And I haven't used that in a while. I try not to use anything aluminum anymore, but I've got a plastic one, and then I've got a stainless one. I prefer my stainless one because stainless doesn't leach into your foods. Now, the other thing that I have, let me bring this out here so you can see, is a coffee filter. And there are some things that need to be filtered to go into the jars. And here's what I do. You can see if I can set that up in that funnel and pour into it and then have it go right straight into the jar. I do that with some things. Some things have to have another little process that need to go through it. And now here's another thing. You can see here I have a Ziploc baggie full of used lids. I try to keep some used lids on hand, and I will show you how to pull a lid off of a jar without damaging it. But these lids are wonderful to use if you're just putting something in storage, if you're vacuum sealing something, or if you're making kraut or something that's going to ferment. Keep your old lids and use them for that process, because, and the other thing too is, if we get into another shortage situation, you might need to use them in the pressure canner to preserve your food. So try to keep a good supply of used lids on hand. Now, the other thing you're going to need is this, what I call canning tongs. They, people call them jar lifters, that you reach into the canner and pick that up. Now, if you're just doing water bath canning, you will absolutely need that. Now, the pressure canner, you could potentially use a towel to prevent touching the hot jars, but there is no way, if you're water bath canning when the water is 2 inches above the jars, that you're going to get by without having it. So that is an absolute necessity to have if you're going to be water bath canning. Now, another thing here, you can see here I've got a little roll, and this is a roll of canning lids. And I buy my canning lids in bulk. Another thing you're going to want to invest in, if you're going to peel lots and lots of potatoes and things like that, this is a Swiss peeler, and it is sharp, and you can peel with this thing. You don't have to worry about, holding a tight handle, because you've got a wider grip with this. You don't get hand cramps as bad with this. So, of all of the things that I've shown you here, this is something that is not necessarily something you have to get right away. Of course, you're going to have jars, you're going to have rings, and you're going to have canning lids. You will need the jar tongs. And now, on the funnel, if you can't, some people might not be able to afford to go out and buy all of this stuff at one time. If you need to make a funnel, take you a 2-liter drink bottle and cut the spout end a little wider so that it will fit the size of these jars at the top. And you can make a funnel real easy with that will work and, prevent you from having to buy all this stuff at one time. Now, another thing that you're going to want to think about, pressure canners and water bath canners can be very heavy, especially once they're loaded. So if you have a glass top stove, you're going to want to buy, let me show you mine here. This is a Cadco. Let me get the light off of there. That one's a Broil King. I have one that's Cadco. And this is a 1500 watt hot plate. 1500 watts will get your canner up to pressure just like your stove will. So that's something that you want to be knowledgeable about, because lots of glass top stoves will not allow you to pressure can and water bath can on them because of the weight. It can break the top of your stove. Now, another thing that I want you to see, and this thing's old, you can see it's stained, and I've used it for many years. You can see I have the old kind of stove with the stove eyes. But if you look at this, I'm going to turn it sideways here, you can see that the eye is up above the ring, about a ½ inch. If you try to put your canners just on the regular stove eye, they sit flush with the ring, and it will concentrate the heat underneath it, and you can burn the enamel on your stove. Now, this new canning stove eye you can get on Amazon. I think it's about $35. So that's something that you'll need to think about if you're planning to do canning on your stove. Now, the other things that are going to be necessities are going to be your canners. Now, here are two of the canners that I have. Of course, the first one that you can see is my water bath canner. And you can see down in it, it has the rack that holds the jars. And I'm making a lot of noise with that. But you've got the rack, and it holds the jars up till you can load the jars in the top of it and then drop it into the water. On my little hot plate here, this is just one of my kitchen pots. And if you look down in it, you'll see I've got a kitchen towel just rolled around in there. And let me show you, if I put jelly jars on top of that, you can see that I've got, about 3 to 4 inches above the top of that jelly jar, that I've got room to add water above that and still keep it boiling. You never want to sit your jars on the bottom. Let me pull that out of there. On the bottom of that pot like that. It will break the jars out from under there. But here's what you can do. You see what I just did there? And then you can sit your jars. You're probably not going to be able to use the wide mouth ones. I threw some in there. But you can see you can sit your jars down on top of that. And I would probably do them like that. You can sit the jars on top of that. You've got room for water to flow between and around those lids. And you can create a water bath canner that way. Now, I'll show you this here in a second. I have just a big stock pot here, and you can see there's not anything down in it. But I could use this large stock pot very easily as a water bath canner. But then the next thing you're going to want, and this is just a big old wash pan. And like I said, I try to get as much stainless as I can in my kitchen because it doesn't leach into the food. But you're going to want to have some kind of wash pans, several of them, probably 3 or 4 of them, because, I'm going to turn this back around so I can talk to you. If you are peeling bushels of produce or cutting up bushels of produce, you're going to want several large pans. And you can start out with whatever pots and things that you have in your house. you know, I've been doing this for almost 50 years. I've been married for 45 years. And so, you know, I've accumulated the things that I need through the years. But when I first got married, I didn't have all this stuff. You know, if any of you have any questions about the equipment that's needed in order to get started with canning, please send me a message. And if I can help you at all, I will. You know, look at your yard sales, look in your, you know, your stores in the area where they sell used stuff. You will be amazed that how many times you will run across canning jars, pressure canners, water bath canners, even big pans. I've got 2 or 3, like the big stainless buffet type pans that I have gotten through the years that I used for cutting up produce in, and I use those in the oven when I'm making apple butter. So, you know, anytime you run across something like that, if you can, get it. And like I said again a while ago, I'm just so thankful for each and every one of you. And, you know, I was thinking about this during the night last night. I woke up and I was thinking about all the people that had ordered my book, and in the front of it where I signed it, I put my favorite verse, or my favorite verses. And those verses are Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. If you haven't looked them up already, look them up. They're good verses to live by. You know, and some people might think, how, you know, the verses say, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not into thine own understanding, but in all thy ways acknowledge him. And so, and that's not all of it, but I just wanted to say, you know, some people might say, how is prepping trust in the Lord? But if you read all the way through the Bible, there are many, many places, like in Proverbs 31, where the Lord instructs us to prepare for winter. Now, there are a lot of winters in life. There's the winter in the calendar year. We have the winter of our life when we get old. We go through winters in our finances. You know, there's winters with our health, and the Lord instructs us to prepare for those winters. And so that's what this is all about. That's what preparing is all about. And so I'm going to go off now, and I'm going to say thank you all again, and God bless every one of you.